This is A World on Purpose.
A purposeful life is the most important kind and the most valuable kind of life.
Every choice that we make makes a difference, for better or worse.
I loved walking in a village and seeing the before and after.
This is the podcast dedicated to those humans choosing to live larger by working for the greater good. And these are their stories. Stories of hope and of true change that come from living on purpose.
What if you were to suddenly say there are no challenges, there are only opportunities?
Regardless of where you come from, your financial identity should determine where you end up in life.
I'm your host, Alyssa Fisher-Harris, and my hope is that my inspiring guests will take you on an introspective journey that helps you tap into your own pivot to purpose, bringing greater meaning to your life. Welcome to A World on Purpose. Hey everybody, it's me, your host, Alyssa Fisher-Harris of A World on Purpose, and I am going to give you a quick little snippet into what you're going to be listening to today with my ultra awesome, uber cool guest, BART MEYERS, who's the founder of Countable and Causes.com. I was blown away by BART when we met a few years ago through my fantastic impact consulting partnership called Fifth Element Group. BART kind of created this platform of what he likes to call the anti-Facebook. It's a platform of people that want to be in community and they want to engage around purpose. And the things that they're asked to do on this platform are anywhere from participating in political campaigns all the way to raising money for cause. And I was really, really moved by what BART had tried to do in terms of taking technology and really leveraging it as a tool for change. You're going to hear all these great stories today around his own origin story, as we like to talk about, his pivot to purpose, and what really motivated him to want to sort of transform the way technology is used to make an impact. So I'm really, really excited to be able to share this story today for a couple reasons. One, because truly from a heart space, BART and I have this great connection around our own passion for wanting to make a difference in the world, which is really the theme of this show and something that we're really hoping to impart on everyone who listens. And two, very jazzed because BART has stepped up and wants to be the back end platform for a new campaign we're going to start doing at A World on Purpose here shortly called our Call to Action of the Week. So on behalf of every guest that comes on A World on Purpose, or on behalf of a cause maybe that's going on that week from Countable and Causes.com, we're going to be talking about ways for you as a listener to actually engage in an actionable way to take purpose into your life and really make a difference. So please dive in with me today with BART MEYERS. I'm so excited every week. I say that all the time, probably get sick of hearing it, but I really mean it. These people touch my lives in ways that I can't even begin to describe appropriately. And I really hope that they do the same for you. So without further ado, please step into my awesome episode with BART MEYERS. Good morning, good evening, and good day, everyone. Welcome back to A World on Purpose, wherever you are in the world. I'm your host, Alyssa Fisher-Harris. And this week, I'm just really, really happy and excited and thrilled to be here today with someone I consider to be one of my impact heroes of the world, as far as I'm concerned.
Oh, come on.
Oh, no, it's true. I'm so excited that you're here. I'm here today with Mr. BART MEYERS, who is the founder of Countable.com and Causes.com, and he's going to talk a little bit about how that got started. There's a little merger there. But before I give you any details about him, I want to introduce this man. He's dedicated his entire life to purpose, his tech background to purpose, bringing tech into the sphere in order to empower and really make measurable and tangible impact by using technology and his platforms to do it. So BART, thank you so much for your time today. Welcome to A World on Purpose.
Thank you, Alyssa. It's great to be here.
I'm so excited. Tell everybody where you're broadcasting from.
Broadcasting from Piedmont, California, which is in the Bay Area.
Which is, of course, the heart and soul of the tech community, correct? Somewhat.
Yeah, although that is shifting. I mean, COVID has created a rapid change on kind of where people are working and how they're working, and I think that's really exciting. I think it's good to see a little bit more openness to people working in diverse ways all over the country and now the world.
Yeah, I agree with you. And we're going to talk about that a little bit too, in terms of like how you guys, were supportive and pivoted in the COVID crisis and how that impacted you and what we're hoping to find as great change coming out of that experience this year. But that's a really good point to point out. I think San Francisco Bay Area is kind of sitting a little bit in a conundrum of shift in that realm.
I think it's good though, but we were impacted. There were too many people trying to live in this area. It was driving prices up. It was driving artists out. It was driving people who, couldn't afford to live in the city to have to commute hours and hours a day. Hopefully that's getting righted.
Yeah, I agree with you. And also helps with the quality of life too, right? In people's lives, which is way better. So let's jump into you, fine sir. I had the pleasure of meeting you a few years ago through some of our work with my partnership that I'm involved in, my impact consultancy partnership called Fifth Element Group. And we were all so impressed with what you created with Countable and causes.com. But before we dive into that and how you got there, our pattern here is always to kind of really dive first into your purpose origin story and how you got here. What drove you to want to live a life on purpose? So please tell everybody your background, because it was fascinating to me, and I think most people will find it also.
Totally. I don't know how fascinating it is, but I think for me, my sort of journey to purpose really came from my family, in particular my parents. And my parents were divorced, and I'm very much kind of the product of sort of a mixture of my mom and my dad. And I grew up with my dad. He was the provider. He worked very, very hard. He worked in the furniture industry, and he really gave me I think a strong sense of work ethic and sort of the importance of that and doing a good job. And meanwhile, my mom really pursued purpose directly. From my earliest memories of her, she was pursuing a degree in nutritional education. She wanted to help end disease. She felt a calling, a fundamental calling to help people. And she felt the weight of the world on her shoulders, and to some degree in an unhealthy way. And it was hard. It was hard for her. And I at the same time was inspired by that in her, and just her drive and dedication, which she really dedicated her life to helping people. And I definitely feel that, and for much of my career was looking for opportunities where I could do that more directly, and was very fortunate that I had an opportunity here in starting Countable to do that in my day job. I think that's a hard ask for a lot of folks who feel a call to purpose. And I don't think that should be a requirement. I think there are lots of ways for us to scratch that itch and to be part of our communities and help our communities. But if you are feeling that hunger and you want to go through the torture that in part comes with doing this day to day, and you and I have talked a lot about this, it can be incredibly gratifying, but it is a challenging path for sure.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, and we talk about it too a little bit, that trying to live the idea of living in a world on purpose, finding your own purpose and doing something that brings you greater meaning doesn't have to be some giant endeavor. It can also be one little meaningful act of helping one other person, do something that has lifted them in some way, right? And to that point a little bit, not that this was just for one person, but let's talk about your mom a little bit more for 1 second. I loved that you said she wrote a comic book that helped kids learn how to healthy eat. I mean, that's pretty cool. How did that influence you when she actually created something tangible for people to put their hands on and learn from? Was that a little bit kind of what helped inspire you?
It was different than the comic books I was reading at the time. But she created a comic book. It was called The Tale of the Kingdom of Light. The first half of it was this journey that this knight took on behalf of his kingdom, where they were struck by disease, and so he traveled to these different worlds. And one of my goals is to put it online for folks. And he eventually finds sort of the secret of healthy eating and brings it back. And the second half of the book is for parents and educators, and it goes into and this is like 1980. So this book talked about organic eating. It talked about reducing our reliance and habits of eating red meat and cows, and the problems with sugar in our. I mean, it was remarkable, and I mean at that time it was visionary and inspirational. I was 10 years old at the time. I didn't really have an appreciation for it yet, and it really didn't. That seed didn't really germinate in me until I got older, and I went to a school in Washington State called Evergreen, which is a little bit like UC Santa Cruz. It's a really remarkable place where you can really find your calling, find your purpose, and you can do that through your education. And I was a friend of mine had recommended I go there, and it really was there that kind of all of this came together. And to not to sort of preview where sort of my career has gone, but one of the most impactful parts of my education was a program focused on the American Constitution, and really gave me an appreciation for something I think we take for granted, which is just how remarkable America is and the system is, and it's not something to take for granted, particularly given last week's events. Definitely given last week's events. But thank goodness, yesterday, Inauguration Day, went smoothly. There was no violence, and it's a new day. It's exciting.
It is a new day. And I love that you pointed that out, because it is cool that we're recording this the day after the inauguration, a day of, a new transfer of, and hopefully hope, love, and light for everyone. I know half the country doesn't feel that way right now, but hopefully things can shift. And some of that is some of the work that you've done with Countable and Causes, which we'll dive into a little bit later. But back to Evergreen and talking about that too, I read an article that said that civics lessons have kind of been missing in our curriculum. And people don't really understand how the government works. So, I mean, that's great that you got that back then, and it really helped shape the kind of work you've been doing now.
Yeah, it's civics education in the country. There's the lack of knowledge that people have, and clearly all of the false information that's been getting out there recently, and the doubts in the fact that close to half the country doubts the accuracy of the recent election. I mean, all of this is symptomatic of just a broad distrust, and I think a lack of knowledge, and taking for granted, how our system should work. And my hope is that we are going to see a return to civility, and that people will take time to hear from one another, and they will take time to start to learn the facts and understand why and how and where things came from. It's a big ask. I mean, understanding our government is, and we do it every day. We have an editorial team that reports on legislation in Congress and the how bills become law. And I don't know if you remember the famous animation, but the point is, it's really, really convoluted and really confusing. And what Congress can do, what the president can do, what the Senate can do, what the Supreme Court can overrule. It's not for the faint of heart. I mean, and we can't expect all of us to become experts on this stuff. We need to live our lives. We need to take care of our families, and so there's a balance to be struck there, and we're trying to help people strike that balance, trying to help them get the resources they need to be able to understand what's happening, how it affects their lives, have an opinion, have impact. It's part of the juggle that we all face in our lives.
Right, exactly. And before we get a little bit into like what that looks like for you and why you created Countable and Causes.com, I just want to touch a little bit more about your background, because part of what we want to do here at World on Purpose is kind of help people understand that when you're on a purpose journey, it's a series of events that sometimes can lead to you finding that thing that you've been looking for. And so your background from Evergreen went into tech, and that's how you've ended up getting to where you are now. So can you talk a little bit about, your work with IBM and Disney and those cool projects that sort of ignited that side of your work?
Yeah. So, so I had a liberal arts degree, but I've always had a interest in technology, a fluency with it, it was a bit of a choice. I think I always knew I was going to go into tech, but I really wanted that kind of foundation of critical thinking and understanding the world and kind of everything that I got out of my degree. Because I anticipated I'd be spending my career in front of a computer, doing technology stuff. And indeed, that is how it's gone. But I was fortunate. I had an opportunity to work for IBM and their consulting group. They provided really wonderful technical training. And then one of the first projects I worked on was a very purposeful project. I was assigned to work with the Disney Corporation, specifically on helping to build a platform for auditing every Disney factory around the world. There are thousands of Disney factories around the world. Every Disney product, thousands of them. They every stuffed animal, every DVD, everything that. And now you've got Marvel, you've got all these brands bundled there, and they needed to validate that these were safe working conditions, that there weren't children working in these factories. And this was all late 90s. It had come to a head with Nike and others. And so Disney really went and they sent out these teams who would go into factories, audit them, and then report back. And so there was this kind of constant feedback loop, and they needed obviously some pretty robust technology to support it. And that was a just fantastic opportunity to sort of bring purpose and my work together. And another version that I would say is the first company I started was a company called Sidereel, and we were not, mission driven in terms of the work we did. We help you find TV shows online and watch TV shows, which for some people I guess is definitely a mission. But I think there is real purpose in providing people with jobs, and I think that should never be overlooked. That giving people job security, giving people, something that they feel is their calling, and, to build a company in that way, and, to create a wonderful work environment. I think that is a very, very fair, purposeful calling for folks.
Yeah, absolutely. We can't forget that for sure. Sometimes purpose doesn't mean that you have to have some lofty goal either. It can be just inherent in what you're doing, everything in your day to day that brings you meaning. As long as you're finding it brings you meaning.
I love that.
Yeah. We want to make sure we define that. Purpose is a very nebulous term. And what does that mean to people? I think it's good to know, as long as it's not harming anyone. We're hoping that it's something that's lifting others, being kind to people, and doing something that's good for your soul. And then if it's something that's larger than yourself, and that actually they've shown research that it can create greater meaning. I know that Harvard Business Review did some work years ago that I saw, where they went into companies and they asked people to identify what their purpose was. And they couldn't identify what their purpose was. They could identify what their work job description was, but they hadn't figured out yet what their purpose was, whether it was in their work or their life. And so, hearing you talk about that, I think is really important. I wanted to ask you too, you said that, so working in the tech world didn't necessarily have mission-driven type of philosophy initially, but that particular project at Disney you felt like did. And so from there, you sold Sidereel. From there, you jumped over to Sidereel, and then you actually you said the greatest thing that ended up happening for you was that you sold Sidereel, which is a huge risk that you took to step into where you are now.
Yeah, everybody's journey is rarely in a straight line, and while I felt a lot of reward and fulfillment in working on that project with Disney, it certainly wasn't the norm in my career to have projects like that, and early in my career, I had to kind of go where my skills and the need aligned. I worked in a number of different startups, started Sidereel. Sidereel was acquired by a company called Rovi, which is now TiVo. Had a wonderful experience going through that transition, finding a new home for our team there, experiencing another big company, kind of thing. But at that point in my life, I was a father. At that point, I had two young children, and I felt like if I was going to do another startup, and I really felt a calling to do another startup, I really wanted it to be something that that brought with it that kind of that mission, that purpose, that desire. Each day you wake up in a startup, you have to feel you've got to have as much fuel as possible to stay motivated. It's a lonely, even with co-founders, it's a very lonely journey. And so doing something with purpose helps to feed that. Doing something you feel like your kids are going to be proud of, creating something that's valuable that people will look at and say, wow, this is great. This is more than just a new ad network or a new way to make another buck. This is benefiting people in some way. And so I had a hunger for that. That was what I really wanted in my next company. I wanted to do a startup. I wanted it to be something that would include purpose and meaning, and something that my kids would be excited about. And remarkably, although it's been not a straight line, remarkably, we've been able to do that. And I feel very, very proud and honored by what we built over the last now 7 years, which is, it's a long time. That's the longest time I've worked anywhere in my career. Just mind-boggling to think about.
That is a long time. And obviously you've gotten past the 5-year threshold, which they say for any business to get past the 5 years means you're doing something right. We hope.
We're getting there.
Yeah, right. So we're going to dive into now, we're going to take a quick break because this is part 1 of your 3-part series. And we're going to dive into in part 2 more about now exactly that whole trajectory. And I love how you said it's not a straight line, because I always use this joke when I describe my career path that it wasn't a linear progression. It was like somebody took an Etch-a-Sketch and just, if anybody's old enough to know what an Etch-a-Sketch is, they turn the dials with these crazy circles that didn't seem to make sense. And then somehow they all culminated into what, I'm doing now, what you're doing now. So let's take a quick break. And for everyone who's tuning in, please come back and listen to me with Bart Meyers, my guest, founder of Countable, which is a combination of Countable and Causes.com. He's going to dive into the nitty gritty now about what that was like developing this company and the kind of cool impact that they're making, which I was just really impressed with, especially now that we're going to talk a little bit about the election and the influence that they had on that led up to our inauguration yesterday. So stay with us, taking a quick break, come back for part 2, and we'll see you in a minute. Hey everybody, thanks for coming back to A World on Purpose with me, your host, Alyssa Fisher Harris, and to our now part 2 of our 3-part series with Mr. Bart Meyers, founder of Countable.com, which is also merged with another entity called Causes.com, and I'm going to let him talk to you about that. We're going to get into the nitty gritty now around, after listening to his cool purpose origin story, how he got here, why he chose to live this amazing mission-driven life and integrate it into the ethos of his company. And we're going to dive into what Causes.com is doing now for the world. So Bart, welcome back to A World on Purpose.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
Thank you so much. I'm so glad. Let's talk about your company now. Tell us how you actually named it, formed it. It's a kind of a merger of a couple of different things, and why it exists, and the kind of work that you've done so that listeners can understand, first of all, the purpose of it and what you're trying to do with it. And then later we're going to talk about how they can get involved.
Sounds great. Shall I dive in?
Platform's yours, sir.
Sure. Countable started as one thing It is actually quite different now, although it still has a lot of those kind of initial elements. The beginning of Countable really started as a solving a problem, solving a problem that we thought we could solve using kind of a smart combination of technology and editorial. And basically, the core premise was people felt out of touch with government, angry with government. They didn't feel like they were being represented by their lawmakers. I think that this theme continues to this day. They had no idea what was happening that their lawmakers were really doing other than raising money and spending it poorly. And so we thought, what if you could make it easier for people to understand what government is doing and give them ways to influence it? Get an alert after your lawmaker votes on a bill. Have an easy way to send a video to your lawmaker and tell them what you think. Get a report when the next election comes up that shows how you and your lawmaker compare, much like on like a dating site, and see how well you match up. And so we built that, and it was really around the concept of accountability and also the concept of countability, or the ability to make it easier for lawmakers to understand what their constituents think. That was the vision. And early on, this is 2014, Obama was president. We had a lot of gridlock. It took off. We were on the Today Show. We were featured in a ton of press. We grew very quickly. We launched a couple of mobile apps. We were on a tear, and we thought, wow, we've figured it out. This is amazing, and we are now going to revolutionize civic engagement, and then the sort of the cold water on our face came ironically with Trump. On one hand, when Trump was elected, you saw a huge surge in civic engagement, in people caring a lot. But one of our core premises was that government would work in some fashion. You contact your rep, and that might influence or in some way be tied into the process of lawmaking. And two, people would want to work together. And post-Trump, neither of those things were true. The legislative agenda became bizarre at best, certainly not productive, and there was zero compromise happening. And secondly, everybody retreated into these two camps. You were either on Trump's side or against Trump. And so there really was no desire to have a conversation in the middle. You were either the good guy or the bad guy, or the bad guy or the good guy. And that really kind of threw cold water on our model. And we then looked at kind of what we had built, and we said, we have done something really quite remarkable here. We've built a technology that makes it easy for people to come together as communities around, ironically, purpose, around causes, around issues that they care about. And we can get them to take action on it. And action is often kind of the missing ingredient with, a lot of community engagement that happens out there. But can we bring people together and then also make impact? Can we measure that impact? Can we count that impact? And that was kind of the beginning of, I think, a much bigger idea. And that bigger idea was instead of being the home for communities and engagement around issues relative to legislation and lawmakers, what if we could power communities and purpose everywhere? Whoa.
I love that. Yeah.
How cool is that? And then we started really looking at what was out there that does this. And, at the time, a lot of those types of communities were forming on Facebook and on Twitter and on Instagram and on Reddit and on platforms where the incentives weren't aligned, where Facebook was trying to monetize you. And as a result, the mission of a group on Facebook became really secondary. And so what if we were to realign the incentives? What if we were to put the cause in control, the community in control? What if we gave them the tools to be able to build the kind of community they want to have, kind of action they want to drive, the kind of impact they want to create in the world? And we could do that using our technology and let them drive their own destiny. And that has resonated so much with folks. That has become, and I think today more than ever. I mean, coming out of the election, we're seeing, egg on the face of every major social media technology company. All the claims they made early on that, well, we can't police ourselves. There's too much happening here, and we can't crack down on violent conspiracy theory groups and police ourselves. Complete bullshit. Of course they can, and they have, and they've shown that they can. But it was only after so much damage was done, and our response is anyone trying to build a community or a group around kind of purpose or mission or impact or ESG should think twice about doing that on a platform where that's not the intent. And what we're trying to build is a platform with that intent, with that goal, with a place for that. And so I'll pause, but that becomes kind of a jump off point to then what happened to the original Countable, which is now Causes and kind of the acquisition. But today we work with and power, we power the Democratic Convention on our platform. So anyone could come and tell their stories about the issues that they care about what they want to see happen in the world. And in a new president, we powered a number of efforts around the election. Our platform powers the donor community for Red Nose Day, which is an incredible organization. If you haven't checked them out, they're trying to end global poverty, childhood poverty, which is an incredible mission. We're working with solar initiatives, environmental initiatives, and again, we're really trying to get to be able to give technology that can do good, that has learned the lessons of the bad, and empower these organizations to be able to use it to power their purpose.
I think the term I heard was, not that I like anti necessarily anything, because that might have a negative spin, but sort of the anti-traditional social media. You've created this a different orbit for people to really approach communication from a social media platform in a positive way, which is super. Yeah, and I love that. And let's talk a little bit about. Thank you for sharing all that, because that's just fascinating. I have so many questions. One being, did you find that any of the communities well, first of all, let's talk about how people can engage on causes.com. So you merged Countable and Causes, but you're officially called causes.com right now, correct?
So we have two different businesses, essentially. Countable is our community offering. Okay. Anyone can come to countable.com and we can give you your own home for your community, which is yours. And it's your brand, it's your data, it's your audience, it's the actions you want. It is your website. It can be apps that you use. It literally can be how you put out your mission, drive action, engagement, and success. Today, that is focused on larger organizations, companies, etc. We're working aggressively on making it so that anyone can come and kind of launch their purpose-driven community on our platform. We also had a brand called Countable US, which was our political platform for anyone to contact their reps. Today, that is causes.com. Causes.com is a place where you can follow issues, take action on issues, launch your own issue platform. And that came about in part because about a year and a half ago, another company called Brigade that had owned Causes shut down, and we acquired their assets. And in acquiring causes.com, we acquired what was one of the first Facebook apps It's an extraordinary community. It's led to over 1 billion actions,
Wow.
1 billion, across 192 million individuals worldwide who use it as a platform to drive awareness, drive action, drive engagement. Anyone today can go to causes and they can launch their own cause, their own petition, their own advocacy, their own storytelling, narrative, you name it. And so that is on our platform. It is using what Countable makes, the software that we make, powerscauses.com. And it is kind of getting a fresh coat of paint. We're in the process of relaunching it and expanding it. But it's an extraordinary resource. It's an incredible community. And it is carrying on that original vision, which is we want to give people a place to have their voices heard, to learn about issues, to engage on civic issues. That is what causes.com is. And we're really excited about what it can do and be in a new administration, in a new kind of in a balanced legislative session where your voice will count more than ever. This is really an opportunity for legislation to truly become bipartisan. And so that the distinction is Countable is our software platform. We power lots of different organizations and communities with it. Causes is our community using our platform. And that's where anyone can go and learn about issues, follow issues, take action on issues.
Great. Thank you for that distinction. And what I love too about it is that you're not being basically blocked by algorithms from, being able to get your message out. You guys are really created a real community. And so now it's not about doing that to people when they really have something meaningful to say.
Exactly.
Yeah, I love that. Also, so let's be a little bit more distinctive too about how people engage. So you serve through these great platforms. Anyone who has a cause that they want to put on, they can go in, create this community, create these pages, and engage people. But you also work with brands. Tell us a little bit about your brand work, and that'll lead us into sort of the Take Time to Vote initiative that was so successful that you must be just so proud of.
I am incredibly proud of that. That's one of the most, we are all incredibly proud of it. I mean, our work this election cycle meant a lot to the team. And, we believe in democracy. We believe in facts. We believe in really upholding the Constitution, the values in the Constitution, and to be able to have played a role in the convention, to have been able to play a role with, Time to Vote, others, has been really, really an honor. So yes, we are at a really interesting moment, and we're seeing companies start to step up and lead and take responsibility in ways that in the past they would not. And we want to honor that. We want to support that. We want to give them ways to essentially do more than just say, "Hey, we're a good company," and instead actually show that they are doing good. Empower their employees. Give their employees ways to follow their own purpose. Communicate with their customers, empower their customers. We in conjunction with Starbucks created a whole platform for voter engagement and voter information for this last election cycle that was for Starbucks customers, called Fuel Our Democracy. And that in and of itself is remarkable. Very few companies have gone out to push voting to their customers, which I thought was really amazing and remarkable. Time to Vote as well. Levi's, Patagonia, and PayPal came together and launched an initiative on our platform, really in partnership with us, that led to 1,900 companies signing up with over 10 million employees between them, Walmart, Nike, number of very well-known brands. You can go to timetovote.org and see see the full list. And essentially, they're committed to give their employees the resources and time off to vote this election cycle. That's huge, absolutely
Major.
huge, and major. And the work we did with the convention, this is an aspect of our business that really speaks to purpose and mission, and it's something that I'm delighted we've been able to do, and I hope we can do a lot more of going forward.
I think that is so powerful. And obviously favorite companies of both of ours, Patagonia, and even not NGOs like 1% for the Planet, that I happen to know as well as you. They all dove in and said, this is absolutely fundamental to what we need to be doing to change the world together.
Right. And this is where you come in, because you can start connecting all of us and start bringing all of us together, because none of this stuff happens, in isolation or in a vacuum. I mean, Levi's, Patagonia, PayPal came together to do that effort. And, I think the more we can help and support one another, the more we can showcase best practices, make it easy for companies to step out and take ownership and leadership and responsibility. Omni wins, the better.
I agree. And that's what our life mission is to do. And it's certainly what I want to do with the World on Purpose is create that community of people living in a world on purpose, and to come together for that. And we'll talk a little bit about that and our partnership that we're going to do together in part 3. But before we go into that, I just want to touch a little bit more about brand engagement. Like, if a brand wants to get involved with you, what's an example, just in case, this is the first time a brand is hearing about it and they're like, wow, we never thought about using another platform other than the traditional social media to engage the causes that we care about. What would that look like for a brand?
Yeah, for sure. So, it's basically, we're sort of leveling up communication with and engagement with customers, with partners, with employees. It's one thing to just publish, here's our values. It's one thing to just publish, this is our report on our environmental impact from last year. It's another thing to kind of meet your stakeholders in the middle and create an environment where it's two-way. And you can say, these are the things we're doing. What do you think? These are ways you can help. These are ways that we can come together around our goals. And there's vulnerability to that. There's certainly risk to that. But the top brands do this very well. The top brands create a community of their customers. The top brands convey their values through their marketing, through their products, and stand by them legitimately. And I think aspiring brands are trying to do that as well. And so, to engage with us is very simple. You go to countable.com, you click on the button to learn more, and we will walk you through how to do it, and how we can help you do it.
Great. And obviously it for a brand, it's part of their marketing budget or their outreach or their CSR, right? They're able to kind of like reallocate those dollars towards something that is going to bring them tangible and measurable metrics related results.
Two great point. And two things I would say on that. One we have seen again and again, report after report, companies that are doing good and doing good work are also doing well financially. In general, they're the top performers in their markets, because it appeals to customers. Value appeals to customers. And then secondly, we make the measurement of that success very easy. We're able to quantify or count all of the actions that your audience is taking and how that is driving impact. So you get those pretty charts that you can take to your board, you can take to your executive team and say, look, it's working. We should do more of this.
I know. It's so funny. I'm very lucky to be part of an ideation group that Virgin Unite created through Richard Branson called 100% Human at Work. And I remember being at an event where the president, Jean Olawang, who I just love so much, who you should know, so I'm gonna have to make an introduction there.
I'd love that.
Yeah, she was talking about why should it even be that we have to show a case study around treating our employees like human beings at work? Why should we even have to show a case study that doing good for humanity is good for the brand? But you do. And that's kind of what it is. So it's great that you're able to tie both of those together, because you're able to show for the person who's fighting for that inside a company why they should be doing it, especially like you talk about emerging companies. If they're reticent to do it, and you're absolutely right, brands now have to take a stand more than ever. They have to show what they care about. They have to show why, because consumers are going to make that decision. Customers are going to make that decision based on what do you stand for. And making a difference with that statement. So for you to be able to provide that, both the whole campaign and being able to make a difference, you're going to also show them results, which is going to help them get more money to do more things like this, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, very cool. We're going to talk a little bit more in part 3. This is a great place to take a quick break because we're going to talk some more about some of the other campaigns you've done, and also something that is really special and near and dear to you around what this platform has done, and that's giving a voice through video testimonials and stories to people, which is really important and profound. So let's take a quick break, Bart. And everyone, if you're listening, again, this is A World on Purpose with my amazing guest, Bart Meyers of Countable.com. And we're going to take a quick break, and we're going to come back in part 3 to listen to the rest of it. And he's got a great call to action at the end. So we're really, really excited about that. Hey folks, welcome back to A World on Purpose with me, your host, Alyssa Fisher-Harris. And we're diving into part 3 of our 3-part series with Mr. Bart Meyers, founder of Countable.com. It's been a really fun journey to talk to him about his incredible company that he's developed out of this vision and this mission of making a place, a community where people can go and aggregate and share their stories and actually make a tangible difference with these incredible campaigns that they create, whether you're an individual, a nonprofit, a brand. So we're going to talk now about kind of a more personal angle on purpose and what that means to being able to live that kind of life and the difficulties and the challenges of pursuing that kind of vision for yourself. So Bart, welcome back to part 3 of The World on Purpose. You're welcome. I'm just so happy that you're here to talk about this because I think, we haven't really dived deep yet into this on some of the shows, and I want to get more into it on how challenging it can be to live this kind of life with a mission-driven life. It's not easy, and you mentioned that yourself. I want you to talk a little bit about that for you. What has that been like, and what kind of advice can you give people that are trying to pursue a mission-driven life and just find it really hard? And, how can you make profit and purpose happen at the same time, and just when they feel like giving up?
Yeah. Well, I think you can give a lot of advice on this front as well, and I think you should, because you've been in the trenches as well. I think it's important to dream big. It's important to have that big vision, but it's also important to be realistic with yourself and what you can do. If for example, you have a job and you need that job to make ends meet. Maybe there are ways you can achieve your purpose within your company or within your job or within your community. And you don't necessarily have to go and start a company or start a nonprofit. I mean, there are a lot of different ways to achieve your purpose. And I think there are some remarkable stories out there of how people inside companies have helped those companies change and become more environmentally aware, or have better diversity and inclusion policies, or just become more sort of woke and conscious as they go about their work. And to be an advocate for that internally, to find opportunities internally, is one avenue you can take. If you are going to go down the path of trying to launch a podcast on purpose, start a company, start a nonprofit, start a movement, do it in steps. Don't overwhelm yourself, right away. And get support. Even if you're the solo founder of it, even if you're the only person doing it, find people who can help support you along the way, your board, if you will. And in my case, it started with my family and support from my wife and parents and friends who, they were sounding boards. They were shoulders to cry on. They were, counselors, and you need that. There are going to be days where, I think if you're an entrepreneur starting your own business, even if it's not mission related, that's hard enough. You throw mission on there, and you throw these additional sort of requirements around what your business does, how you'll make money, if you'll make money, how you're going to raise money, how you're going to achieve your purpose. It's hard. And so just, give yourself that sort of mental, emotional support system. Don't go it alone. have help, have support, and be realistic with yourself. Because every day is not going to be the cakewalk. You're going to have days where you doubt yourself. You're going to have days where you question. I've had all of them. I've had all of these. It's a slog. And the other thing that I think is really important in going into this is that you may think this is the most important mission in the world. You may think that your purpose is something that everybody should care about. Not everybody will. Not everybody is going to, just like jump up and down and say, yes, you've done it. You've solved the world's problems. There are critics for everything out there. And, people are in their world. They're in their environment. And, and so just don't try not to let that get you down, but also try to be realistic in your expectations of what other people are going to come to you with, how supportive they're going to be. Not every funder is going to give you money. Let me tell you, I've I've raised a lot, but I've tried to raise a lot more, and it's extremely difficult to raise money. And that in and of itself is kind of its own aspect. So, some thoughts. I hope those are helpful for you all out there. And if you feel the hunger, good, follow it. Embrace it, and build on that. But be realistic.
I agree. And I love that you said that not everyone's going to think that your purpose or your endeavor is right for them. It's true. I mean, we jump on the board and think, everyone's going to love this. This is going to be great. It's going to change the world. And it might change a part of it, but maybe not everyone. So I think that's a great point. And that keeps us kind of in that state of humility too. Sometimes humility to a fault. But I want to talk a little bit though further about this because, being a founder, trying to start something from the bottom up, that remember when I had my guest on in season 1, Avery Kent, and we talked a little bit about that toxic positivity. I know what I do when someone tells me, "Oh, that's never going to work." I don't think that's a good idea. And people that you respect that know how they have experience in something. Right. So then you kind of start to doubt yourself and think, "Oh my God, am I doing?" How do you balance? Because I know what I do, but I'd love to hear how you balance between taking advice from people who have experience that you think could be helpful, but at the same time, not giving up on what you really kind of feel is the right trajectory or the right thing to do. The way you're doing it. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Well, I mean,
that's
going to depend on you and your approach, I think, to a great deal. I mean, one of the things that I've had to do is share the vision and share the creation of the vision, and basically to let others come in. With Countable, we got some parts right, but not all of it, and so we had to be open to evolving our mission and to pivoting until we found kind of the right fit. And that was not a solitary journey. That's not like something where I just saw in the crystal ball where we needed to go. There's aspects of that. It's a give and take. Each of these kind of steps that we went through, some were more painful than others, but they all required a lot of consensus building. They all required a ton of communication and a ton of getting feedback within the team. And it's easier when you're individual, but it's also harder because it's on you. And when you have the great thing about a team is that you multiply your ability to have impact and purpose and execute, but you've got to have everybody moving in that same direction. And if they're not clear on where you're going, if they're not clear on why, if they don't feel bought in, if they're not excited about it, it falls apart. And so that's its own skill, challenge, art, consensus building, bringing people together. The later I get into my career, the more I find that so much of my job is just communication. It's just bringing people together, giving people opportunities and space to contribute and have their voices heard. that's with like our team, but increasingly that's also what our platform does, which is kind of cool.
Right. I want to talk about that too, in terms of these amazing stories that get to be told. But I just want to make one more quick thought as I listen to you and I think about it. The antithesis too is that you're talking about having a team and an internal team, which is great. But sometimes in the journey, even like you said, even not in a non-mission aligned company, you can be so close to it sometimes that you aren't seeing what needs to shift. And so it's nice to get outside opinions and be open to it and still know how to stay true to the values of what you're trying to do, but also embrace outside thoughts and ideas and suggestions. Would you agree?
Totally.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, that's and furthermore, like if the mission and purpose is what's motivating you and you're feeling like you're being pulled away from that, that's a great kind of that's a great moment of just sort of checking, like, is it worth it to move in that direction? And, can your purpose evolve with that? Or are you still, and you think about that with us, like when we started, we were focused on kind of civic engagement and giving people a way to communicate with their representatives. And what we're doing now is bigger, broader. It encompasses that, but there's a lot of other forms of engagement and mission and purpose that we power. But it was a challenge, I think, for a number of people on the team when we made that pivot, when we started to move away from that original vision toward not just powering our mission, but powering other people's missions. What if you disagree with their mission, which has been hours of conversation internally?
Oh, I bet.
And I think we've come to a good place, but
I bet.
What's that?
I bet that was difficult because, it's hard to think about supporting someone else's vision that's opinion that's opposite of yours, but that's fair and balanced, work and journalism and all of that. You need to be able to show lots of opinions. And back to the idea of, we can all disagree on things, but we can all also respect each other in that process, and try and find a way to make it work. I want to talk a little bit about the platform itself and these great, how it's become this great platform for that kind of thing, for those stories. And we're going to, as we wrap the show, talk about why that matters in terms of how we're going to partner together, which I'm just so honored, Bart, that you want to partner with A World on Purpose and Countable, because we're going to create calls to action of the week. We're going to start integrating those into the shows, either on behalf of the guest that's on or just a regular call to action of the week. It's really exciting to get people actually not just inspired to find their purpose and to pursue their purpose, but to mobilize themselves and their communities to action. So talk to me a little bit about why the stories that come on Countable are so powerful to you, and how you've been so proud to be able to take these stories and bring them to the world.
Totally. So one of the things that we do that I think is really unique and a really cool innovation is that we let people tell their stories. We let people record videos, kind of like selfie videos, and they can share their journey, their fear, their hope. When we did this work with the convention, for the Democratic Convention last year, people uploaded videos talking about their hopes and dreams and fears, which were very real, very tangible, and very immediate. And many of those were actually aired live during the convention in the We the People segments they had between speakers. Oh my gosh. Which is incredible. And I don't think a lot of the folks who submitted them knew that they were going to be on TV, but it was amazing. And that capability, that idea of being able to let you sort of see your supporters, your constituents, et cetera, and to make that really easy for people to be able to tell their stories is remarkable. And it's a difference maker. I mean, I'll tell you some of the most heartfelt stories that we have seen and captured are around parents talking about their fears for their children. We helped to save the adoption tax credit, which is a very meaningful additional monetary incentive for people who are adopting kids. And one of the most powerful, the videos for that were amazing, where people were talking, literally sitting there with their adopted child in their arms, talking about how important the tax credit is for them, but also for other people who are going to adopt children. And it's just, it brings it home. It makes it real. It helps you empathize with people to see them. And lawmakers love getting videos from their constituents because so rarely do they actually get to see their constituents. They just get kind of angry calls and angry emails, but to actually see a video of somebody communicating is very cool. So it's something we're really proud of, and we love the impact that it can provide. And it's it really, I think, is going to be more and more useful, particularly with COVID, but also with just how we're all becoming more and more virtual.
Mm-hmm, definitely. And as any stories have the power to really make change. They've created movements. They've changed policy. They have inspired people to get themselves out of very painful situations because of relatability. So I'm so proud that we're going to be able to partner with you on that with A World on Purpose. And so let's talk for a minute about that, what that's going to look like. We have a page that's been sitting there waiting to be activated called the CTA, the weekly CTA page for World on Purpose. Yep. And that means explain to people how we're going to be able to engage them, to mobilize them into action, what it's going to look like.
For sure. I mean, the we're all busy. And our time is very valuable. But when you have a connection, when there's something you care about, when you come across a story that you're like, wow, that's important. That's something I should do something about. And what you should then have is a button or a clear call to action that says, here's how you can go make a difference on it. This is what, our expert, this is what Alyssa says would be the best thing you could do right now to make a difference on this one issue. It's not rocket science. It's really straightforward, but we don't do it nearly enough. And so we want to go beyond a petition. We want to go, petitions are fine, but we really want to start to personalize impact. So getting people to tell their story, record a video, share that with the lawmaker. Advocacy is a great form of action. Donating to a cause is another great form of action. Starting your own cause. And so we want to make that so easy for any of your participants on your show that they can, that we can support them and their call to action, so that your listeners can go and take that action.
Great. And this is the intent to go back to that one thing we talked about in the very beginning, which was it takes one simple, small action to feel like that you're living in a world on purpose, doing something meaningful. And so if we can create a mechanism through our partnership with you, with causes.com, and Countable, we'll be able to give people that tool to go feel like that they're doing even just one thing that might seem little to someone else could really be very meaningful to them. Correct?
Correct.
Yes.
Awesome.
And then the other exciting part is that as we grow this, we're hoping that, to your point, that our listeners will also be able to start uploading their stories and their purpose journey so that we can actually grow this community and get people to share their experiences of what it means to live a purpose-driven life, a mission-driven life, and get people really excited around that, because I think we need that now more than ever in the world. And so, Bart, I'm really excited that you're going to be providing that mechanism to our little show here to help people engage in many multiple ways around the world of purpose.
We are really excited.
I'm excited too. On a closing note here, because we're kind of running over, can you just give people one little piece of advice of something that you do for yourself every day that helps you stay this course, that helps you really stay in your vision and mission of living this mission-aligned life when sometimes you just feel like, I don't think I can do this today. What do you do?
For me, I think it's very easy to get kind of sucked in and obsessed and obsessive. And for me, my balance is my family and just making sure that I have time. We all have dinner together, spend a couple of hours together in the evening. Like, that's our time. And it's important to get a break. It's important to see why you're doing it and to kind of step away. And that's been a great ritual, and my family really helps to reinforce it by getting me away from the computer and calls and everything. But I think it's really important to have a balance, and you need that recharge and you need that perspective.
Definitely. I agree. work-life balance, work-life integration, whatever you call it, is extremely important to being able to stay the course.
Yeah.
Bart Meyers, founder of Countable.causes, thank you so much for being on the show. Before we go, can you tell people where they can find you?
Absolutely. You can find me on Twitter at Bartolah, BARTOLAH, or Bart at Countable.com.
Very cool. And all of Bart's information will be on his episode page at aworldonpurpose.com as well. You can also please be sure to go to causes.com and check them out. Check out everything that they're doing. The work that they've done has been extremely impactful in the world. And I am convinced that this is going to grow and keep growing into something super, super huge and make a massive difference in the world for all the things that are going to be coming down the pike in the next several decades. So Bart Meyers, thank you so much for your time today. I know you're really busy and I really appreciate you being here.
Thank you. It's been really great.
Yeah, I'm excited for people to hear about you. It just makes me smile. Everyone, thank you so much for tuning in to A World on Purpose. We will see you soon. Come back for all the other amazing guests that we have. And be sure to listen to parts 1 and 2 of Bart Meyers so you can really hear his origin story and how he built Countable and Causes and that incredible journey that he's had to get to this life of living in a world on purpose. I'm your host, Alyssa Fisher Harris. Very excited to have you here, and we will see you soon. Thank you for taking this journey into a world on purpose with our incredible guests. To learn more about our amazing guests and their inspiring purpose-driven work, please go to aworldonpurpose.com. Don't forget to look at our call to action of the week to mobilize your desire for purpose into action. A World on Purpose can be found on Apple Podcasts and all the major podcast platforms, and the video version can be found on YouTube. If what you heard today inspires you, please write a review and like and share on the platform of your choice. We'd love to also hear from you and learn your pivot to purpose and the meaningful work that you do that lifts humanity. Send your stories to info@aworldonpurpose.com. I'd like to thank our World on Purpose team for making this show a reality. Once again, I'm your host, Alyssa Fisher Harris. Thank you for tuning in to A World on Purpose. I look forward to seeing you soon.